Hi, everyone. It's Lynn Davenport here with Mary Lowe and Marcy Galle. We're with Families Engaged, and we're doing an update for this tick. Is it ticked or tick ed? We can't decide, but anyway,
Well, really, it's ticked, like ticket, like the
we're
ticket.
ticked, like the ticket?
Yeah, because we're tackling all the problems in education,
Yeah,
right?
right.
But it really
I know, but it
isn't.
looks
We're
like,
ticked ed.
okay,
It's
yeah,
ticked and ed.
whatever
Yeah,
you want. We're totally
whatever you
ticked
want.
at education, and we are going to talk about it. So we've got Marcy Galle on here, and I had Marcy on the Social Impact podcast last year to talk about the ungodly behavior in Godley ISD, and they're still behaving badly. And so Marcy has been filing grievances, and there have been all kinds of issues in this district. And so one thing we do with Families Engaged is we train parents on how to file grievances. Because we do believe all the important power should be locally in our local cities and school districts, and parents need to understand the law so they can use the law to fight the lawlessness rather than looking to a distant tyrannical leader to help us. We actually have the power within the local area, but they're not following the law. So now we do have problems, and we are without power. So what do we do?
Well, I want to give credit before Marcy starts telling you how we got to where we are. I want to give credit that, before we were Families Engaged, and I was just operating in Tarrant County alone as a source to identify problems in education. I met Kayla Lane and Greg Cooper, and they were both in Godley, and they have stayed in the fight and stayed focused. God love Greg. He was one of those that was trespassed, and he's a patriot. He served the country. He is a great mind to dig in and to find the truth of matters. And then Kayla, who also had children in the district, and she was like, hey, what do I do? How do I do this? And she has taken the initiative. They are both super smart, super focused. They have not lost sight of the fact that children are not being educated and that there's no transparency in education. And the fact that there was no transparency in education has led us to where Marcy is really holding court today in Godley, Texas. And I don't literally mean holding court, but she's almost literally holding court. So Marcy, tell us
what trespass means. I don't think what viewers all know what trespass means when you're trespassed in a district.
Okay, well, and it's interesting. So it has meanings in all different in all different venues, but the way it's used in the school districts is if they don't like what a speaker is saying, they can tell them to hush, or they can, say your time is up, do this or do that, and then they trespass you. And Lynn's almost
raise your hand if they tried to trespass you.
Lynn's almost had
we can't see your hand, Marcy, but okay, yes.
Well, so and that's actually what happened to Jeremy's story in Round Rock.
Yeah,
is that they didn't like what he was saying. They told him he couldn't come because they wanted to take away his freedom of speech, his right to petition his government. And your school board is your government. And with these tyrannical superintendents, especially where they have their own police force, they just tell the police, issue a criminal trespass warning, and they send you a letter and say, if you come back to our premises, we're going to arrest you. And they then,
rather than reporting to the police department, they report to the superintendent, which is a whole other show we could do on SRO, school resource officers.
Right.
So Marcy, tee it up for us and tell us what you've got going on there, and how their ungodly behavior needs to be stopped.
Okay, so in addition to their tyrannical superintendent, Rich Deere, the city of Godley has a pretty tyrannical mayor, AC McGahey, and he has basically usurped the power of the entire city government down there. There is an issue that came to light last summer. And it was when the school district had reached out to the city. They were changing their shared services agreement. They were changing it from the Johnson County Sheriff's Office, and they wanted to move to the Godley Police Department. because, and eventually, so Rich Deer, who's the superintendent of Godley ISD, he wants his own police force, and that's really the path that the school district is taking. I believe they have already submitted their application to have their own police force. It's a process they have to go through with T. Cole. But bottom line is,
Hey, Marcy,
so-
what's T. Cole?
I don't know right offhand.
But isn't that the licensure for the law officers?
It is. It's
Yeah.
where they license, yes, all of the peace officers. They pretty much command that whole process of setting up these individual police forces. They vet everyone, and then also if you have a grievance, or you can file complaints through TCOL, similarly to how you can file complaints with SBAC against teachers and administrators at school districts. Okay.
Okay, all right.
So
Law
the
enforcement,
reason-
something
the
to do with
reason-
law enforcement.
yes, correct. So I actually went in to the police department last Monday and filed a formal complaint against their mayor, because one of the things that has happened is that the school district went ahead and hired an SRO, which is a school resource officer. So the memorandum of understanding, the agreement between the school district and the city, did not allow the school district to go off and post for that job and go through an interview for that job. That was the city's responsibility, the Godley Police Department's responsibility. So that is only one of many things that the mayor of the city of Godley has totally bypassed his local city codes, and he's bypassing completely the governing authority of the city council. And it's as if they have their own little godly cabal down there. It's absolutely horrific what's going on.
Well, and I
Yeah,
remember when we did the podcast with you, that you talked about Lesser and Crass, the law firm that was also almost running the school board, and they would defer to the lawyers. Right?
Yes.
Isn't that right?
Yes, that is
Those companies.
correct. Lisa Crest does not have, any tie to the city, but the mayor went ahead and, before he had council approval, he hired an attorney on his own. He executed several contracts for the attorney, the interim city secretary, and also the public became aware that he executed a employment agreement, a separation agreement with the former police chief without council authority as well. So there's just all kinds of things that are going on down there. And it's unfortunate that the only way the public has to hold these people accountable is doing what I did and going in and filing a formal complaint. Okay, there is a penal code for abuse of office. And this is exactly what he is doing. Any public official takes an oath to uphold state and local laws and the Constitution. He has not been doing that. And or
Okay, so you
have
cited
to
the
go-
penal code and filed a complaint. And who did you file it with, the city or the school district?
I filed my complaint with the Godley Police Department.
The police department. Okay,
Yes.
and now, so are you have you had any movement on your efforts to do that? And what's the next step?
The answer to your question is no. I did reach out to the police officers later in the week last week. I was able to obtain a signed copy of the MOU. And interesting fact with that.
Memorandum of understanding. We have to be
Exactly. Yes. And the interesting
acronym.
fact with that is that I couldn't find any agenda item on any of the school board agendas before, during, or after that time of when they should have approved that, before Rich Deer signed that and executed it with the mayor. Okay. So
Marcy,
you have
Go ahead.
You have public servants, public officials executing contracts without the express consent of their governing bodies.
Yes. But, I mean, beyond that, I mean, they're also, and this is why I go back to, often I say we have to, push back at local. If we don't stop this type of tyranny and this type of, and it's lawlessness. I mean, this is not political jockeying. This is just holding people accountable to following the law. This is not, hey, I want this in my school or I want that in my school. This is just saying, hey, follow the law.
Exactly.
And then you have a city that is covering up for the school district and making it possible for them to not follow the law. And and then you have the school getting ready to come before the citizens for money, for a bond issue. And the bond issue is exorbitant. There is nothing that financially justifies the kind of money they're going to ask for. And here's the thing. The people are going to pay for it. It is going to be an increase in their taxes. They are going to pay at least $500 person per year for however long. And that's if they have the projected growth that they're expecting. And go ahead. I just am saying, not only are citizens not holding elected officials, whether it be a school board who hires the superintendent or the mayor who is elected and the city council, they're not holding any of them accountable. And then those bodies are not holding the police force, which they hire, accountable to following the law. It's such embedded corruption. And the problem is, if the citizens don't push back and then they turn around and they give them more money, they're just going to grow the size of the corruption. And the bigger it is, the harder it is to undo the corruption and get back to a place of healthy representative government where accountability exists. And this is why we are, as Families Engaged, jumped over to address these municipality issues, because it's local in those small communities like Joshua. Your school is often the largest employer in the district. And so if your city is going to cover up for a corrupt school, the whole thing is going to be an abuse of power, a fiduciary abuse, and lawlessness. So I'm super glad, Marcy, that you saw this. You were managing this from the get-go. And then sadly, you got to witness them target a council member. And I want you to be careful when you talk about that, because there's still some pending issues around that. But would you just share a little bit about, in their attempt to keep their corruption concealed, they have gone after a council member, and it's retaliation, and there's no two ways about it. That's all it is retaliation, and an attempt to oppress her from exposing the dirty deeds and the corruption that's going on in the city. So can you talk about that just a little bit?
Sure. Well, so the last regular meeting was held February 7th. And that evening, as Councilwoman Thompson was pulling into City Hall, she was arrested. And the charge against her was that she had tampered with a government document. So I'm not going to go into all of the nitty gritty, but what it boils down to, and I ended up actually having a conversation with the Justice of the Peace 4 Judge Shaw about this very incident, because once I read the probable cause affidavit, I read what Officer Arbuthnot, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but he was the Godley PD officer over this complaint. The complaint was lodged by former City Secretary Jessica Hill. And it was nothing other than a councilwoman wanting to make sure her agenda items were included on the meeting agenda. So she had added some draft items back into the draft agenda, sent that back to Jessica Hill. An important part of this is that this meeting, that this agenda was supposed to be published for and noticed for at the city hall, never even happened. It was a meeting that was supposed to
Wow.
take place at the end, right after Christmas on December 27th. The meeting didn't happen because it was a special called meeting, and the mayor, along with Jan Whitehead and Marianne, another councilwoman, they did not show up. So the meeting didn't even happen. Is it a coincidence that they ended up arresting Jennifer Thompson so that she could not vote on all of those critical agenda items that evening?
Well, and if I understand correctly, there was supposed to be a council meeting this past week on Tuesday, and
Correct.
they canceled it because all of these things that they did that subverted the true
Correct.
law by arresting her. So basically, I mean, and it seems by all evidence that you and
It's
I
by
have seen,
design. By
yeah,
design.
it was 100% by design. We could go into some really horrible things that occurred along the way, and that this member of the public who has stepped up to serve, that she's gone through, and but at the end of the day, the focus needs to be that we have to have people who are willing to be brave
Yes.
and courageous and
Yes.
run for public office, who recognize that it is not okay to go along to get along, that they must
Right.
know what their job is, they must know what the law is, and they must call out when the law is not being followed at every letter of it, because it's being eroded from the top, being
Right.
Austin. It's very eroded at the top, and we must get our cities and our schools run by the law locally. All citizens, this is where we need to stand in and teach other people how to stand up, and that is our goal, is to educate other people how to do exactly what you are doing in Godley. Is there an outcome that you would like to see in Godley relative to the school district, the city council, and then heck, if you want to talk about the bond, talk about the bond?
Well, okay, so an outcome that I would like to see that I think would be preferred by most of the public would be for the Godley ISD to continue their memorandum of understanding, their shared service contract with the actual City of Godley PD. I don't believe a lot of the public want to see Rich Deere, the superintendent, actually have a police force at his beck and call, which is basically what it would be.
That's right. And hey, and another layer to that is that it takes the crime reporting and it distorts the real numbers, because the school crime reports are not going in with the city reports. So it'll make the city look like they have less crime, less issues, and the school's its own entity. We need that to stop. And this is something that we've talked with Representative Brian Slayton in his office, because he recognized this in his district, in his area. So this is not, so most of these things that you're talking about, for the listener, this is happening in districts all across Texas. There's 1,200 school districts. And, then you think about all the police departments that are affiliated with it, and how slowly but surely they are taking these responsibilities away from the police and putting them under, as you said, like Rich Deere, under the superintendent. And these people, they don't even,
too much
they're not
power.
even doing their education job. I'm certain they're not going to be qualified to
police. Well, and of course, you know what scares me the most about this is that we're sitting here and we're kind of teetering over the Niagara Falls, if you would, in the government taking over, the public schools with public-private partnerships. Boy, when the schools already have their own police force and they get taken over by private partnerships, we have the wild, wild west. I mean,
absolutely.
It's not even, it's just totally stupid.
Well,
Yes.
I'd like to say something just because this is such a huge issue for me. I just have such a heart for public, the right of the public to address their governing bodies
Yes,
during
yes.
regular meetings. I am tired of all of these entities telling me that I have to speak on a particular agenda item. I am tired
Yes.
that all of these entities tell me that I have to fill out a piece of paper 24 hours ahead of time in order to come in and speak at a public meeting. And that's not even part of their online formal policy. Okay. So that's going against their policy. And I am somebody that will recognize that, but you have all of these members of the public that don't just get hosed.
Right.
Hosed by these people in positions of authority that have basically taken away our freedom of speech.
Yes, yes,
Put all these
100%.
parameters and these stipulations, and you have to do it this way.
Yes.
And of course, you and I, we all are fine with decorum. We understand that, but they add extra layers, and you're saying they're not even following their own policy. And then
No.
was it you who showed up to a meeting a few minutes before, tried to fill out the form, and that you still had time before 6 o'clock, and they didn't let you speak? Was that you?
No, that was Kayla. That was Kayla
Oh.
Lane. And that was in
But
Godley. Kayla.
Mhm.
Can I just say, I think in our other podcast where we talked about Godley, I was the one that showed up with a form that looked exactly
yeah,
like
yeah.
theirs,
Uh-huh.
but they made me fill out an absolute exact copy just because, I don't know, just because they can make me do that. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. It's like, seriously,
It's a power
like,
trip.
do you
It's
not?
a total power
Yeah.
trip.
it's a
Okay,
power trip,
well-
yes.
So, Marcy, so is it next week? When's the next city council meeting in Godley?
Right now, as it stands, it's going to be the first Tuesday of March, unfortunately. I believe that's March 7th.
Yes,
As
March
it
7th.
stands right now, because again, so other parts of my complaint with the PD is that the mayor has not called these special meetings as requested by 3 members of council, as he is supposed to do. Okay. And when he does, when he did not act and call it, then you had the pro tem post for the meeting. But guess what happens? You have to have 4 council members at a special called meeting. So you have Mary Ann and Jan Whitehead and AC not show up, and therefore there's no meeting that can be held.
Yeah, it's there's so many laws being violated. Okay, so we're hoping to have, it's already standing room only, but we're hoping to really pack this meeting with lots of speakers. And Marcy has ordered these t-shirts. There's 2 different options. One t-shirt says corruption, collusion, what?
And oppression. Corruption, collusion, oppression, and then hashtag Shady AC.
Yeah. And the other one?
The other one says good old boys, and it says resign now, and it says hashtag Shady AC.
Okay, so Shady AC is the mayor. And if you would like to buy one of these t-shirts, you can go to info@familiesengaged.org. Or if you would like to make a donation, there will be some legal remedies that will be sought as a result of the false arrest of Councilwoman Thompson. You can make a donation to White Hat Law. And if you email us, we'll send you the link for all of that. So email info@familiesengaged.org. Marcy, it was great to be on this podcast.
Do I have a chance to just say one quick thing about the massive bond in Godley?
Please do.
The ungodly bond in Godley. Yes.
Oh my goodness gracious.
How much
y'all.
is it?
It is almost $900 million. So just under $1 billion.
And how many students do you have
for the size of Godley?
Do you have 6,000 students?
No.
Oh, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. I believe there is maybe 2,300, somewhere around that.
Ours was 750 million in Richardson, and we have almost.
No, I know. But here's what they're doing, Lynn. Okay. And so I've been trying to get this information from Jeff Roberts, who works at Hilltop Securities in Dallas. I've requested the information from him. I've called him and left messages. He won't call me back for some reason. And so I finally put in an open records request to the district. I want to know the amount of the installments of this massive bond. I believe that they'll probably sell 300 to 325 million next year or this year after it's passed. And then basically it will just be like an installment loan into forever, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I understood. The night that
Yes.
Huckabee spoke, that's what I understood.
So I've already created my own spreadsheet based on their current debt, their growth, and it will have a tax impact column on it. So once I receive that information, I'll be updating my spreadsheet and I will be sharing that far and wide on social media.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
And then also in regards to bonds, if your school district is getting ready to do a bond, we've posted, I think it's called Trailer Park Talk. I'm not sure why they named it that, but two members of our association, Amy Hetke and Joe Palmer, were both on that podcast talking about the issue of bonds and how it's a tax and the laws all around it. And it was super informative. And I was so grateful that they did that because it was on our to-do list with them. And so that's out there. You can also contact us if you just want us to share that link to that podcast with you, because it explains everything you need to know about what's happening. These bonds are being put forth in the schools and they are doing it very covertly and not being honest. And yeah, that's
Right.
the architect
Well,
firms do that.
They lie and say that the growth will fund the growth. Well,
Yeah.
they can't afford their current debt that they have right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the bottom line there. But
Okay.
thank y'all for having me on. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Marcy. And
Yes.
we'll share this and get the call to action for parents to show up to the meeting on March 7th. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you so much.
All right, bye.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
Mars.